Is that not working? It's not working. Right. Oh, hello, evening. I'm just in Facebook trying to share the webinar across. Hi, Mary. Evening. I'll just pull up the chat so I can see you there. Different glasses on. A bit mucky. Let's see who else is there. Hi, Susie. Hi, Joe. Hi, Nicola. Thanks for joining me for a cheeky sixth night. I'm just going to see if I can share that again. It's not picking up the group. I don't know. We're probably aware of some things going on between Zoom and Facebook in the last week. So let's just give it another bash. That's strange. I don't know where that's. No, that's not right. Something seems to be amiss with that option. Might need to pop a message in the group in case anybody wanted to watch that. I'll try one last time. No, it's not picking up the group. Unfortunate. I'll try and drop a little message in or spot if anybody's asking. There we go. So we're Zooming only this evening, flying Zoom solo. How are you all doing? How's your Monday been? So it's it's kind of almost like I don't want this to end. I'm like, I'm here again. But it has become, you know, like 5 nights in a row. I've never done live sessions 5 nights in a row, so it has become part of my routine now. So it's going to be strange tomorrow night without you all. I don't know how you feel about it. So it's a bit sad that it's ending, really, but it's a 5-day challenge and we've sort of snuck it over. But I am sneaking it on a little bit more because I've put an event in for Friday to go through and just show off some of your designs, but also announce the winners. So that's the drop dead point. I've been saving some of the final stuff that's gone in today, but don't panic if you're not ready. I'll keep my eyes peeled. There's been some fab designs showing up, and I bet some of you find it hard to decide which ones to go for. Let me just pull up the participants as well so I can see who's here. Oh, there we go. Jackie's over in the group. I'm just going to double check. I don't know why that's so strange where I can't go in there tonight. Well, if anybody spots anybody asking in the group, could they direct them over here? Because it looks like there's a bit of a disconnect. Could be the Zoom updates because it's a Zoom feature that I'm trying to push into Facebook. So we'll just stay here. But I just thought this would be a really nice way to sort of round things off, really, rather than just, you know, running off and saying, get on with it now. Just to give you some pointers, and really I'll run through my piece as a sort of, as I've been doing all week, as a sort of demo to what my plan of attack is. And if you've got any questions, I've got some questions here that I've already picked up that people have asked. This is just an open floor, really, to get a bit of help with yours, because the next stage is hopefully we're going to see these pieces of furniture actually appear. That's what I'm hoping, because the idea of getting you sort of over that hump with the design and sort of getting something down on paper so you can actually get yourself there. Now, hopefully, get to creating. but it's been really nice to see that people are doing it in their own way, and you know, it's how you get there at the end. You know, so some people haven't used an image, some people are just using an image. It's absolutely fine, and I think, you know, as long as you know where you're going with your design, it's horse for course. It's got you where you needed to go. That's it at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's really lovely to see all the feedback in the group. I'm really, really chuffed, because it was taking a bit of a leap doing this, because I've never done it before. And you know, you've got a whole lot of people watching you thinking, right, what's next? What are you am I going to enjoy this? So it's really, really rewarding to see that it seems to have worked all right, and everybody seems to have got something out of it. And hopefully for those who are just finishing off, you know, there's still time. There's still time. Yes, so I'll talk about mine first. I've got bits and bobs around to do with sort of masking tape techniques, because a lot of us will be wanting to focus on those particularly. That's my specialism, and you know, that's where, you know, that probably give you more in-depth insight than most people. So if there's anything you're thinking about in terms of like sequencing, applying, how you go about it, because I did say to you, don't think about these things yet, but now you're thinking, thanks, I need some help, then this is a good time for that. Thanks, Hayley. I thought I'd dress as one of my pieces of furniture tonight. We've gone full on masking tape design, finicky. No, I didn't design it, but it could make its way onto a piece of. It's funny how subliminal things are, though, because my last sideboard was zigzags, but I haven't had this on for quite some time, because it's a bit strange to be wearing around the house by yourself. But yeah, so I won't be looking quite as sort of spivvy from tomorrow night onwards, now that I'm not doing the lives with you guys. So like I say, it'll be a bit sad. I'll probably be thinking, oh, it's time to go on. Oh no, it's not. So my piece, and then I'll go through some of your questions. So make sure you chip in. Just do it through the chat if you want to, or if I've got the screen on, the Q&A pops up, because the chat goes away when I'm in there. It's very bright tonight. It's a little bit cave-like, isn't it? Okay, so I'll come back to the questions at the end, and then we can, because we've only got some common themes, and then rather than me bobbling about a bit. But I'll start off with talking about mine, because that might throw up some questions, because I might sort of steam in and you think, hang on, slow down, you know, take me through it. So let's pull mine up. Meep. And where is it? It's in my little treasure trove of designs that I've been gathering. So you might spot yours in there. I'll go through again to make sure I haven't missed any. And like I said, 1 o'clock on Friday, because I'll go on live at 8. Just gives me a bit of a chance to look through more. I'm going to be sharing them in my stories on Instagram as well. So actually, that's a good point for me to say. If you want to be tagged in, it's not always easy with Instagram to know what people's names are, account names, because it doesn't correlate. It's quite as easy as it does on Facebook. And obviously we're all on Facebook for this challenge to a large extent. So I wonder how to do that. I could do with finding out your Instagram handles so that I know. I know Jennifer's, but I might not know some. I know Nadine's as well, but I won't, and Sherry's, but I don't know. Sherry have Instagram, but maybe if you could just pop onto your post and just pop your Instagram handle on, and then I can make sure to tag everybody, because then you'll get a notification. So here's mine. I'll put this up on screen. I might have seen that I shared this on my Instagram as well. Yeah. Oh, I'm going a bit jittery. Hopefully that's just a temporary blip. Okay, I'll put up the questions, make sure. Excellent. Is there anything to do with methodology? Because there is a sort of sequence of doing things. And I did a masking tape masterclass last year, and so it let me sort of really be really geeky about all the different processes. And I think I worked out with about five or six different application methods in general. So my preferred method is what I kind of call the all on and then all off method, because I'm actually surprisingly fairly lazy. If you follow anybody else that does masking tape design, you'll know there are some very intricate designs which you know, maybe they're tessellated with loads of different colors, and that involves like lots and lots of separate taping sequences. If you have any colors right next to each other, with no spaces, so whether it's painted background or wooden background, you are going to have to tape it and then take the paint off, take the tape off, and then tape it again because you've got paint sort of underneath where the tape will be. So you're doing it in sequences. You'll probably look at my work and see that I don't do that very often. The tape generally goes on, and then I fill it in with colour, and then I take it off. Because doing that once and intricately is, because as far as my patience goes, I think that's you know, it's absorbing the one time, but to keep going back in. Now, saying that, I think mine might need a little bit of that if I execute it in the way that it is in this image. So it's going to be over wood, despite the grey, lack of colour printer, and I've got painted sections at the bottom. So I will be laying my tape out, just as you can see in the image there, a bit more specifically. All of that can be done in one taping and using cutting to remove the tape that I don't need. And then I can probably paint the bottom half while I've got some tape on, if I leave a gap. But if I want the black to go right up to the bottom metallic lines, like you can see in the photograph on the right hand side, then I'll need to just do the metallic first, or tape off the black first and come back and do the metallic afterwards. And if I do want to insert these black lines in, well, the nice thing about doing it this way is I can stand back, have a look and see if it needs it to balance it, to bring the black up through the piece. I might even stand back and go, wow, that looks really nice over wood. So this is where I'm going to slightly gauge mine, because actually I haven't got a very good representation here of the metallic over the colour of the wood. So I'll probably just wet the wood a little bit and I'll be able to see and get a sense of it. But I like the idea of that anyway. It just sort of modernises it a bit. And I'll be using a combination of thinner tapes and thicker tapes. So I'll just use normal frog tape and thin tape as well, creating my chevrons. So rather like I have in the drawing, I'll have to mark it out so that I can get those halfway points and make sure everything lines up. But to answer one of the questions, who's that from? Chris was asking how I make them so neat. A lot of it is by eye, and obviously you can measure and you can line things up with points of reference on a piece of furniture. To some extent, I think your eye needs to work a little harder because some pieces of furniture are not straight. So balance, don't religiously go by the piece of furniture. If it looks a bit off, correct it with your eye, because the pattern's going to jump forward most of all. But a lot of the time it's the tape, which does mean you've got to have an eagle eye that your tape hasn't gone a little bit, because it can bend a little bit, especially the little thin ones. The thin ones can curve a little bit when you put them on, so you need to make sure that you're quite taut about it when you're putting it down. But yeah, you can use points of reference on your piece to make sure things line up. Yeah, so I will probably do it all in one go because of that gap between it. If I was going to do it, and like I did on the last sideboard as well, because there was black in between, but if they're close together, I'd have to do them sequentially. I'd have to do one colour, take the tape off because the tape's lying on top of the next colour along. So that's sort of a consideration you might have to make for yours. I'll always start over a stripped wood base. It's the best foundation. Prep is really, really important for masking tape design. It's astonishingly much more important than I think any type of furniture painting, because you're not any other furniture painting. You're not then going and trying to rip the thing you've just applied off with tape. So you have to be really confident in the way that you've prepared your surface. Let me just come on to these questions again. So I just stopped sharing for a second so you can see some more interesting than the chat questions. Not sure that I am, but there we are. So Joe's asking, how long should you leave one layer of paint before then overpainting with the next one? So you can generally leave it, you only need to have it touch dry as long as you're using, as long as you're using a fairly resilient paint. I've even used a hairdryer in between when I need to speed it up. So touch dry, and you can go over the top again, and you're ready to go. And it's, you know, I'd probably find about 2 or 3 coats, but at least 2 every 3 you'd need to build up the the layers that you need. So Mel is asking, Osmo oil and paint together with masking on same panel. Can you turn that into a question for me? Just give me a little bit more detail so I know what you're talking about. Do I oil the wood parts after painting, or do you use top coat over the whole piece? It varies, Yvonne, in terms of how I finish up a piece. But I very rarely finish a piece of furniture with oil only. I have started experimenting with Osmo oil because it seems to be, you know, the big thing. I don't really like working with oil-based things. It means wasting brushes for one sake, you know, one reason, and it's obviously takes longer to dry. You've got to wait hours for it to dry rather than minutes, which obviously slows you down. So I tend to have to wait overnight to do the next coat. You sort of finish off towards the end of the day, come back and then go again. There is a more rapid Osmo, I think, which takes 4 hours, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's you know, it's obviously a slower process. So I tend to go over the top with a top coat, and I tend to use a top coat that's quite well, some of the top coats I use kind of look like a varnish, look like an oil-based varnish, but they're water-based, so it gives it that sort of richer look that an oil would, but it actually will protect the paint as well, so that I end up with one surface. Because the thing about oil is it absorbs into your wood. It doesn't do anything to the paint unless you're using chalk paint, which I don't know if that's going to really help. Actually, you might need something more resilient. But it absorbs into the wood. It doesn't absorb into the paint. You end up wiping it off the paint, and so you don't end up with a protected layer. So that's my personal preference, is to have something that unifies the surface at the end. The only change to that is when maybe staining. If you're staining before you do your pattern or during as part of your pattern, you need to think of a slightly different sequence, and you've got to kind of work with those stained areas. So if anybody's got anything like that, I can explain that in a bit more detail if you shout out. Hi, Mel. If I'm using Osmo oil and paint, which do I do first? Well, I like I said, I've only done it on a couple of pieces of furniture. I don't. I prefer more of a film forming protective top coat than an oil which sinks into the and makes like it seals the surface, but it doesn't form a layer on the surface in quite the same way. But I have used it. I would tend to use it last. I know people who just do the bits of the wood with the Osmo and leave the paint as it is. Call me anal, but I actually don't like to just leave the paint bare like that. I think it just needs a bit more protection personally. And if I'm using dark colours, obviously they can look a little bit dusty if they're a matte finish. So I tend to top coat over the top. So Osmo, you could paint over it, but you'd have to wait for it to fully cure as an oil. And then if the surface felt a bit sort of smooth under your finger, you'd have to then sand it to get a key to paint it. So I'd definitely say prep, paint, and then use your Osmo towards the end. I know people who put Osmo over their paint, but I've not tried it over every paint, and I wouldn't like to say if some paints might just go under the it might need to be sort of quite a good resilient acrylic paint that could handle it, but you're largely going to wipe it back off it. You're not going to leave it on top. So there's something to be said for not worrying about going around the paint areas. Just do the wood bits, let it soak in, and then wipe it back off the painted areas. That's what I would say. We've diverted into a chat about finishes. Anybody want to talk about applying their actual design methods for getting the pattern on that they've come up with? More questions than top coats. I use general finishes, although that's going to change in the next week or so, because we do have a shortage in the UK at the moment. The distributor has been closed since November due to unfortunate circumstances within the business, and it's just put a big stop on the whole stocking a bit. So I'm trying out some other things. So I've got my Osmo, I've got my Fusion Stain and Finishing Oil, I've got my Little Fairs recommended to me by Nadine. Nadine's on. So I'm going to be trying out different top coats. And really, once you know what top coats you want to use or protective products you want to use, your applications don't vary that much. So I think I could be a bit product agnostic. And General Finishes might lose me, but it is the toughest, and I think that it's the most hard wearing. But I'm going to be testing some stuff out. Polyvine is another one. You know, if I would consider trying it again in the future. Another one to look out for if you are looking for something. You're welcome, Yvonne. Joe has used General Finishes matte, which seems to work well. Would you recommend this? Yes, absolutely. I think General Finishes is the best. It's incredibly hard wearing. It's incredibly easy to apply, and it's really quick to dry as well. So I'm very keen on that product. I use the satin mostly. I've been using the matte a bit recently, but yeah, it's very good stuff. I've had seeing the hair on my arm. That's there. I've had water sat on General Finishes accidentally that dripped in through the garage roof and sat there for a couple of days. That dried out fine on top of General Finishes Infusion. So that's why they're my go-to. Nailed on. For cutting my tape, Mary, I use a craft scalpel or an X-Acto knife, they call them in the US, don't they? Or craft knife. So it looks more like a scalpel with that sort of blade. I don't know if I've got one to hand here actually, because I'm obviously at home. It would be good if I did, but I'm not sure that I do. But I like a straight blade rather than a. Oh, actually, funny enough, I do have. She says reaching around. I thought I had a blade here. I'll show you, but it's disappeared. So I like a straight blade rather than the round one that you might kind of visualize when you think about a surgeon's scalpel. Straight with a point. So not quite as it's more pointy angle than a Stanley knife, and a bit more of a sharper blade. You need to work with a really sharp blade so that your tape doesn't get all fluffy and rip. I actually did rather dangerously just have one knocking about on the desk here, which I could have showed you, but it's gone for a wander, so don't worry about that. Oh, it's there, actually. It's a bit rusty though. So it's like that shape. I've obviously used this for gluing something, but can you see the point on it? That's the kind I use. And as you can see, they are replaceable. So you should be able to get them on Amazon or eBay, or I've even had them from Hobbycraft, but it's places like that for only £5 or £6. I'll come back to the other questions in a minute. Yvonne is asking, when you're measuring and marking out markings for your designs, do you draw on the wood with a pencil or anything like halfway points, etc.? I don't measure out my designs really, Yvonne. No, that's not what I do. There is a method which you might need to measure out, which is where you have more of a. Let's just share my screen. Where you have this is one here. I like a little magpie. I gather up examples of, like, this is a lady called Happy Retro Furniture. So this kind of thing would be drawn out and painted in. Again, like this one will be. Let's just open this one. This is now. If you're in here, I do apologise, but I've forgotten what the lady's name was. But we were very impressed with this in the group when she shared it, and it's basically drawn out almost like a grid, and then all the lines, and then you just fill in and tape around. So that's a technique. Might be something you need to do, especially when you've got colours next to each other. Whereas I actually don't go along the lines of I tape out my lines onto the cabinet. You can see here. That's quite an old one. That's in the garage, but I'm actually taping that out directly onto the thing. The most I might measure is where the center point is down a door. And I just use a little bit of chalk. I wouldn't use a pencil because it can obviously mark, certainly not on paintwork. I found that I've said that to people in workshops, just use a pencil, and then it hasn't come off the paintwork. We've had to put a little bit more paint on. So I tend to use chalk, and I use like a dressmaker's chalk because it's quite fine. It's quite pointy, fine edge. Let's just stop sharing in case anybody wants to see anything else. You can ask me. Yes, that's all I do. I mean, I might use, I might measure midway points to get things to line up. And I sometimes use a laser measure for lining things up because it gives you a laser crosshair, and that's quite good to make sure things. I'd still use your eye a little bit, because if you go putting it down there and you find the sides of your piece taper a little bit or a bit skewy, you need to kind of moderate it a bit just so that it doesn't jar and you think, whoa, that stripe's much bigger than that one because you've done it rigidly to the lines. But using a laser line can be quite helpful, actually. I found it quite helpful for decoupage as well. I don't do a lot of stenciling, Joe. Joe's asking what brush would I use to stenciling to get a clean, crisp edge. I have tended to use a really big old sash brush, you know, the sort of the type you'd use for chalk paint, really. I've used those and then cut the top off and then elastic band it together so you get a really big, really all the bristles are together and they're flat, and then just use that. But I know people use cosmetic sponges is another way that you can do it. Any fine sponges like that, or those little dabbers that you see in the kids' ones. But the idea is just get it really, really dry, really, really dry. Take so much of the excess off so that it doesn't have a chance to escape, because there's not much liquid there. That's probably why I don't stencil, because I'm a bit like, how long do I have to do this for? And especially with Fusion, you start to get a bit of a texture. I think it's also the courses. Some people are brilliant at it. And I think for me, I'm just ironically very patient with masking tape, but when it comes to doing 3 layers of paint through a stencil that may have to be moved onto another piece, I start to get a bit lose interest a little bit. But you know, fantastic effects can be made from them. I think I prefer to use my masking tape as my template, really. But so I think it's about finding something that works for you, but getting the excess off it is really the key thing. So use like a paper towel, or I'll use some paper and just dab dab. Mel's asking if I use metallic paint, or normally do a similar colour underneath. No, I don't. I just paint. I might do that with gilding. You know, if I'm gilding, I might put a base layer down. If I'm doing a large area, I have been known to put down mustard or something from Fusion for a gold, because I don't want to use up tons and tons of metallic to make that. But when I'm doing my designs, you know, I just go in there. If you find you've got like a little project pot and you want to make it last, yeah, you could match it up with the colour to go underneath. I have obviously a lot of paint open from workshops and all that sort of thing, so I have a little bit more at my disposal, so maybe it's easy for me to say that. But I think 3 coats of that, or 2 coats of one and one of the other. Actually, you'd still probably have to put 2 coats of your metallic on over the top just to get that, so it's not sort of opaque in any way, see-through in any way, to build it up enough. So you might save yourself a coat of paint, coat of metallic, I should say. Yeah. How sturdy does the ruler need to be? What's that for? I have a whole selection of rulers. I have a lot of different rulers. It depends what you wanted to do with that ruler, Susan. Let's have a little look in the chat, because we've got questions in both here at the moment. Yes, I think it's about being, Paula's saying, do you need any special prep under masking tape? And I don't think it's about special prep. I think it's about thorough prep and doing it in the right way. the right steps. And really, that's what the online course is really for. And that's really what I would take you through step by step, how I would go about preparing something so that it is fairly foolproof to apply your masking tape, because there's lots of different things to the process, but they all have to kind of be working together. So when people come to me and say, oh, the tape's rubbish, or the paint peeled off, it generally is a prep issue, and getting that right, and getting the sort of sequence right is I think it's one of the most important things you can do. Obviously you want to get the right application, you want to have the right tape, you want to have a good paint, but yeah, your surface has to be prepped right. Thank you, Lindsay. We don't want to think about what's on the bottom half of my outfit, but I'm enjoying the jumper too. Thank you. Paula is saying to make the paint stay. Yes, because if your surface isn't prepped properly, your tape has got a greater hold on the paint than the surface has. That is the major issue. So you've got to get it right, and no skipping a step. You've got to make sure it's clean. You've got to make sure it's sanded. You've got to make sure, that's why stripping's a really good way of going about preparing your surfaces, because you're nothing to worry about. No little shiny patches that are going to trip you up when the paint comes up. So, I mean, there are ways to fix these issues, by the way. I mean, it's like the same as I was talking to everybody about making mistakes. I've made hundreds of mistakes with masking tape design, and it still occasionally happens. I mean, not so much now, but there's still times I have to fix stuff up because I probably go a little bit faster than I should. And that's all doable as well. You don't have to sort of think to yourself, oh, I've messed it up, especially the first time you're doing it. I've messed it up. I've got to therefore start again. It can be fixed, and that's the sort of stuff that I will show on the course. I don't know if you saw that I actually launched it this morning. It sort of ran into the end of the challenge, but that's the whole reason for the challenge. Really was I wanted to give people going on the course more in-depth help with designing, because they'd come on the course ready to get going and doing some actual practical work, and then be sort of like, oh, I don't know what to do. And there wasn't enough time necessarily to go through that. And because it's a practical course and taking you through sort of end to end, and doing all the application and the product choices and the technique with the masking tape, we didn't really have time for them to sort of go away and think and do mood boards and stuff. So that was the whole point of it. And then I thought, I think other people might like this. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is make the replays of it available to everybody that's coming on the course, so that if they want to take a little bit of time to go off and stretch their legs creatively, they can do that as well. Hi, Gaynor. Yeah, no, I can't share it onto Facebook. No, I did say originally I wasn't going to share it on Facebook tonight anyway, just to make life a little bit easier for me, not checking comments in two places, but the Zoom sharing option won't let me connect to the group, so I couldn't push it in there. So unfortunately, no, I'm flying solo on Zoom. I don't know if anybody's able to add a message in there to say that we're in here, and that they can come in, because you can still come into Zoom on a mobile phone if you don't want to come on, and sit at your laptop or what have you. So I'm hoping that most people have found their way here. The numbers are pretty good, so I think you're generally all there, aren't you? So let's see what everybody else has said. So I've got a bit right where that question was. So Hayley says she's doing a mix of wood and paint and was going to oil the wooden bits. Do you think it would work out okay? Would you draw, pencil the tape and design and stick the tape on? It really depends what your design is, really, as to whether you need to draw it or not. Sometimes you just use the, I can't remember, had you actually chosen which one of yours? Hayley, just remind me. I don't think I've got it in my folder here. Let's have a look without sharing, just check. Keeping track of you all. No, I haven't got yours yet, have I? So I don't know which one you're doing. But if you're doing wood and paint and oil the wooden bits, Yeah, that should be fine. That should be fine. You always want to do your finishes last, really. That's my rule of thumb. There's just some sort of exceptions to that. Like I said, talk about staining and stuff. There's some exceptions to that, but I just generally go in with the tape, but it will depend what your design is. From I think that says Tom, tips for spacing the masking tape and keeping it straight. You have to have a good eye as well as anything else. You can use the tape to create a guide with your tape. I mean, this is stuff that I will go into this in much more depth on the course. We will be literally going through all of the creating of tape, so the tape designs and how to actually apply them. But in terms of lining stuff up, the tape itself is pretty good at lining stuff up. You can create some sort of guidelines for yourself on the piece to keep things, you know, lined up, and then you can create yourself like a little spacer effectively if you need to. And when I do something like let's just see again, this one, nope, this one. So this one here is done using this one here where I'm cutting. This one is done with using a guide, using just a piece of tape to guide it, and all I'm doing is lining up things with reference points. So it's pretty freehand, it's not drawn. It's just checking this bit's this far away from that bit, this bit's this far away from that, and they line up. There's a piece of guide tape probably stuck to my leg or something somewhere that I just use for the whole piece, and move it around. There is a technique that people use where they actually will tape out the whole thing. So the little gap, they'll tape out the whole thing using a small tape and then mask around it, which if you're feeling a bit nervous about creating this channel effect, that you have to create it in reverse when you're doing it this way. This is a method that I've kind of, I suppose, kind of invented to some extent, because I was trying to put a sparse amount of pattern on a large item. So it's sort of outlining what I'm trying to put down. But yeah, if you could put your tape down and mask around it if you wanted to create something as sparse as that. I'm trying to, yours is more block style though, isn't it, than fine line. That's that fine line style sort of dictates that really. But yeah, it's about measuring and finding reference points to take your tape from, and then being really quite careful with your eyes to check that something lines up. Maybe it's something that I'm good at and don't realise. But your tape can get you there. This is squidging off your names a little bit. Let's just see if I can open it out so I can see who everybody is. There we go, that's better. Sherry's asking, how do you create a curved design with masking tape? There's different ways to do it, Sherry. You could use a curved masking tape. You could use a sort of a load of masking tape and actually cut out of it, either creating that on a mat and taking your curved thing to the piece, or cutting it away and leaving yourself with an area. And you could do that by cutting around something. So you could cut around something as simple as a plate. I do have, this is quite nifty, but I don't know if you can get these any bigger. This is a cutting compass. So that's actually a blade there. And it only opens out that big, but that's still quite a big, what's that? So that'd be about 15 centimeters when it's the diameter of the circle when that's cut. So it's fairly big. But yeah, you might be able to, or you could rig something up, couldn't you, with a little drawing pin and a knife on the end. Some people actually just do that by a pin, a string, and a pencil, draw it, and then cut it very carefully. So there's more than one way to do it. It just depends what you're trying. I think you're trying to do arches, are you? Is that the case? You could put, you know, the very careful pin tack. You could draw and use that like a string type compass to do it, or just literally get the right size plate, go around and then cut it out. That sounds sensible, but you can get tapes as well. But I kind of favour doing that because it allows you to do the size you want to do. Yeah, Maya, that's fine. Please shoot with the questions. Can't see questions. Sorry, I was reading and not saying anything. You've stripped the paint and 2 cupboard doors to look to be the same wood, but one's much lighter, and you've sanded both the same but still different shades. If I stain them both, we'll do the lighter one more coats of stain to balance them out. Yeah, that sounds like a sensible plan. Yeah. And this would, I mean, I don't know what your colours are, but this is an example of what I was saying about staining. It's when it comes to doing a design, if you put design over the top of it, your stain is not sealed. So you just want to be careful when you top coat because your stain will move. So you might want to just seal that in. This is an example of one. Let's just show you. It'd be nice if you could just share a screen and just pop in and out. I'll have to do it in my final images of my furniture. This one, this is with stain and paint, and so I had to go back in and add the stain in on those, but then I also then had to top coat the stain areas so I could top coat the whole thing over the top, otherwise that brown would have dragged across the paler colour surfaces there, so I had to sort of seal that off. So that's something to think about if you're going to do a design over stain. Lost my window. Back in the room. Let's just check. I'll come back to the Q&A questions as well because we seem to have them going on in both, but that's absolutely fine. Oops, it shot me right down. Cherry's asking about thoughts on painting on glass. Yes, absolutely possible. I know a lot of people who do the drinks cabinet glass, you know, like the bottom glass, because sometimes they've been broken. I actually just take it out now because I don't know if I'm actually going to make the drinks in there, and it's a bit sort of, you might break it with the bottles. But I know people who have gone in behind that glass and put metallic patterns on to sort of jazz it up. Better to do it on the reverse side if you can. I did a masking tape design on glass cabinets, actually. Back into sharing again. I might as well just stay in there. This was a ladder rack style cabinets, and this was done with masking tape. Well, it was done with the mini masking tape, but that's on the inside of glass at the top, used with etching spray. So I've done it on the inside, so it sort of stays, doesn't get, you know, the sort of wear and tear that you would on the outside. So that's one thing you could do. I think it's probably the best way to do it on the reverse side, if that's what you're meaning. I do freestyle a lot of them at Hayley, yeah, but I think that, you know, working with quite symmetrical pieces, when you get into it, or maybe I've just got a good eye, I don't know. I don't know. Doesn't mean to say that I don't do something and think, oh, that's wonky, I'll have to just redo that. I don't mean the painting, but, you know, when you're lining stuff up and you sit back and you need to tweak things. I generally use normal sort of artist brushes for painting because they're nice and soft. Yeah. I use the stripper that I saw on the website, which is an eco one, because it's non-toxic and it works. So I stopped using the one I used to get from Wilko, which I used to use on all my workshops and all my furniture, but it's this is a lot safer to use. It's called Home Strip. So you'll find that on my website, but you can get it in other places as well. And I did a side-by-side test with it, actually, with BioStrip and the Wilko one, and it was actually, I was surprised. I thought for an eco one it wasn't going to be as good, and I thought, well, that's okay, but it actually was. It was the best one for me in terms of all round usability. It wasn't all drippy and horrible. It is fine for inside. It doesn't have any fumes, and it's fine if you've got asthma or if you've got any sensitive skin. In fact, for anyone really, we shouldn't be getting strippers on our hands. I think it's horses for courses, Susan, in terms of stripping and stripping sequence. Get myself into trouble. A lot of people like to use a heat gun, and I think it's either or, heat gun or stripper. I wouldn't use both, but it might depend on what you're tackling, because some lacquers, some very thick finishes, just they just seem to be a bit impenetrable to paint strippers. So a heat gun can take it off almost like a layer of toffee, which is very satisfying. So, and heat guns are fairly inexpensive. You just be very careful not to get too close to the wood with them and keep them moving. But both of them are good ways to strip wood if you're careful with your scraper. They're both good ways to go about it. Some people swear by cabinet scrapers, but I think if you've got a very thick lacquer, that's just not going to cut it. It needs to be something that's already started to give in a little bit, that will give into a cabinet scraper, I think. Lots of coats of paint can be fine with a stripper, because with a heat gun, you're probably going to find you have to tackle each one individually. It might go through them all at once, but strippers sometimes it stops. I've done a piece of furniture which had gloss, so we put emulsion over gloss, and it sort of stopped at the emulsion, and then I had to go again with the gloss to get through that. It was very satisfying because it was all just came off all wrinkly and plasticky. When am I using masking tape? Is that tonight? In terms of when am I using it on my piece of furniture? Haley's saying the doors already have lines and I'm scared to sand it all down. I have to track back to what you mean by lines there. Sorry, Haley. Oh, thank you, Kerry. You like my mood board. Well, she's asking me about my metallics that I've used in my mood board, which I completely fudged. I was a little time poor last week, has to be said. I have to now source that. I used Posh Chalk metallic pigments on my rainbow cabinet before, but it wasn't a rainbow. It wasn't strictly a rainbow. So I need a blue and an indigo to pad out my rainbow. Only had 5 colours. So but I've been looking at some of their other things. They've got metallic pastes in their range, and there's a bright blue, and I've got the red, and I've got a yellow and a green. So I'm actually planning to play around and see if I can get the shades that I need to make them from that. I went through quite a lot of metallic ranges like Ticarilla and Authentico and Fleur to try and find those colours, and there was no one range that did the whole lot. So I'm going to try and mix them because the pastes look mixable. So we'll see. The pigments are great, but they don't have a bright blue in the same way. So I can keep you posted on that and tell you how I get on. Because yeah, there was no one that had that really nice. There is one last place I want to check out was called Liquid Gold product, but I haven't. I thought they did colours, and I didn't find their colours when I was searching, and I had to kind of get a move on. So I just did what I did. I know the shades I want, and I'm not averse to mixing. Yeah. Oh, bless you, Susan. A lot of gloss. But the gloss actually sometimes can be the thing that literally just lifts up and wrinkles off, and you just go straight through it. It's the water-based finishes like paint and top coats that can be the worst, because they just rehydrate and they go blobby, whereas a gloss doesn't rehydrate. It just lifts off. It lifts off, if only. But it does lift off the surface, and then you can just scrape it off as almost like a layer. So I hope that happens for you, because it's rather satisfying and a lot easier than you think. All right. Sorry, Paul. I thought you wanted a demo, and I was thinking, oh shit, did you think I was going to do a masking tape demo for you? I get my masking tape on the course, so if you want to see that happening, you've got to come on the course. When using masking tape, do you need to paint a base layer or something to stop bleeding under the tape, or you can paint straight onto the wood? Well, the techniques I teach are straight down. But I'll always explain other techniques. So on the workshops, on the courses, I go straight down over the surface that's there. But you can use, if you're painting over a base color, you could use the base color. Yeah, I've done it on a wall because walls are a little bit more uneven, and it's a good way to prevent that sort of bleed through, is to paint over your tape with the base color first. So that can be quite handy. What I do with wood is, if it's really grainy, like an oak, it's got a really noticeable grain, and you can run your finger across it and you can hear it going across it. That's places that paint will go. So you could use a bit of top coat just to seal the edges of the tape, and that will stop it dead. The frog tape has got a technology in it which is supposed to stop the paint. As soon as it gets wet, it just stops. But it doesn't hurt to go over with something first. That's why I've got like different ways that I paint when I'm painting into the tape, because it helps the edge lock technology kick in. Let's have a little look. I don't really draw lines, Susan, to be honest. I think we were saying this. For me, tape is a line. So I tend to use, I like them to be quite solid. I don't want my scalpel to cut into the tape, into the ruler. But the problem is, personally for me, for accuracy, I don't want to use a metal ruler. So it's just a plain old ruler. I prefer a clear ruler, because otherwise I can't. I need my cuts. You need your cuts to be really precise. This is some of the stuff that I'll go into the minute detail, but yeah, when I'm actually going through stuff on the course, because you need to be very, very accurate, as you'll find out. The paint will find you out if your cut work isn't spot on. So I have another pair of glasses that I use when I remember for doing stuff like that. Let me just see. So the other brand of tape, there's a couple. There's one called Modelcraft and one called Tamiya, and they're both modelling tapes, actually. You know, imagine you're doing airbrushing an Airfix model. That's what they're for. So you'll move those questions out of the way because they're glaring in my face. Yeah, so you'll find them in those kind of places like Hobbycraft and online, where you'd buy modelling supplies. I use Tamiya the most because I think it's a little bit better than Modelcraft, but it's fairly inexpensive. But for the size of it, it's you know, I've never put it this way. I've never really got reels and reels of it out on my workshops, because yeah, they're only little tiny things. So you know, but we're using one of them per project isn't so bad. Yeah, so Gaynor is asking, you want to do an outline honeycomb design? I'm completely lost at how to achieve this with masking tape. Well, I will show you something. Out comes the screen share again. I will show you something that I think might be what you mean, like this. Get it to open. Just thinking about it. So that is an outline honeycomb design, which I've then taped back into. So it had to be done separately, because obviously the lines are next to each other, so it's not possible to do that in one go. And I shall tell you my secret. If that's the sort of thing that you're thinking of. I have seen people on workshops trying to create that design by hand, and that's a stencil. That is a stencil. You could try to create a little hexagon template and tape around it, but it just seems to me like a lot of hard work. Templates are handy for taping if you want to recreate the same shape over and over again, is to create literally a cardboard template. As you'd, most of my techniques are fairly down to earth and touchy-feely rather than mathematical, which is always quite surprising when people come and work with me. They're like, whoa, but they work and they are more enjoyable than measuring to the nth degree. So templates are handy. So you could technically get some hexagons, but to try and do all that network, I think would be a pain in the bum. So that personally, that's a stencil there. And just I think, is that the last time I used a stencil? But that went across the front of the whole sideboard, so that to be done 3 times over. So yeah, that probably finished me off. I do enjoy them, but I quite like just coming up with something different each time. So you have to see, you invest in a stencil. It's something you might only use more than once. Does that look like sort of thing you're after? Yeah, I think that was from Etsy. Dizzy Duck or something like that. I haven't got any more questions. Well, I'm just going to take this opportunity to tell you about the course, just in case anybody's interested, before I let you go. Because you might have seen the emails this morning. I don't know who's on what lists, but I did put it live to my email list this morning. Just to first time since September that I'm running it, but it is going to be the last live one. I'm going to be running it myself, doing live Q&As through the 6 weeks. But then after that, it's going to become a recorded course. So there'll be a community, like a sport community, but I'm not going to be teaching it hands-on in the same way. It's time for me to go and do creative things, I think, for myself, and then work with my groups. That's what I'm thinking. So I just want to do this last one and, go out in style. But I will make it available. It'll be there whenever people want it after this one. But this is the last one we'll do together. So yeah, but I was going to offer my lovely challenge group some special bonuses if you fancy coming and joining me. If you come and join, because I'm giving everybody access to the replays, so sort of replays from the whole of the challenge, so they would be yours to keep. But also I was planning to give you 25% off the Photoshop masterclass if you wanted to come to that, which I'm thinking, depending on how knackering the launch week is, because launching a course, it's only available to book onto till next Tuesday, is tiring. So, but I'd like to do that on the 18th of February, because I just want to lead this all up to people coming on the course, so you can do your designs, learn how to design, do your design, and then come on the course and actually make it. Some bright light keeps coming on my face. Yeah, so I'm thinking on the 18th. So I was going to give you a discount for that, but also as a sort of special last minute thing, I thought I'm going to throw in a one-to-one as well, just for you lot, and for anybody who's already booked on. If you're already booked on and thinking, hey, what about me, that will include you as well. So a 15-minute one-to-one to actually look at your design and to help you deal with any issues you come across, because each piece of furniture is completely different, and so there might be thought process to tackle. You might just want some personal help from me. I'll be there with all of the sort of live Q&As on the course anyway, but this is just so we can specifically concentrate on your piece. We can do that over Zoom, and see what I can help with, basically. So yes, that's some special bonuses for you guys, which I'm going to make available until you hand your work in, basically, on Friday. So at the same time as I sort of go ahead and announce the winners. So a little bit of an extra incentive if you want to come and join me and you want to actually go through the process of creating the piece of furniture from start to finish. Then it'll be very exciting. Let me see, any more questions? I think I've got some questions written down here, so I'll just check those. Getting near to time. But quickly, if you've got any more that you want me to help you with. Where are we? Questions. Oh, here we go. Chris asked me about working with, she asked me about masking tape being so neat. So we sort of covered that. And I do think there's an element of eyes. Working with gold leaf, it's perfectly possible to use gold leaf with masking tape. So yes, that's something you can do. I just think it's a question of making sure. She said, does the tape not rip off the masking the gold leaf? But it's more the other way around. Use the masking tape for the size, and then you apply your gold leaf. So that's kind of how it works. Yeah, so it's a nice way of doing things. But I kind of like metallic paint because it's obviously quite robust. Gold leaf isn't quite as hard wearing. So for the front of a cabinet, I'd much rather have on metallic paints. And she wanted to ask about restoring her top surface. And your top surface, Chris, looked like you could just sand it. To be honest, it looked like it just needed a really good sanding, or a stripper on it. But then some sanding just to get that out. It's amazing how much when you look at a piece of furniture, you can just tell that a lot of that is going to come away with the right preparation, and it looks like it should be fine. Monica asked about painting and stenciling in different colours. Stenciling? She must have said stenciling because that's what I've written down. What is it supposed to be taping? Anyway, let's say painting and a design. So my technique is always to get your base layer down first. So if you want to do, you know, a colour with a fine design over it, you'd get that base layer in. Don't try and have too many things butting up to each other. So, you know, put your design down, then try and fill it in. You want to have as few edges as possible where you can have maybe a gap where you've missed and you haven't quite connected together, or you get like the ridges of paint. So I say, get the biggest surface area of colour down and go over the top of it, and then you don't have to worry about meeting little bits and matching them up. And then what else do we have? Oh yes, Faith asked, what paints would it be best to use? And this is where, and I'll even more so this time on the course, I'm going to be quite agnostic about it. We had to do that when we went into lockdown because, of course, people were like, oh, I can't get hold of. They weren't coming to the workshop with me to use the paints I got, and I had to kind of make sure I was fairly wide-ranging, giving people advice about finding what they could. Ironically, here we are again. So now, quite rightly, Faith, you said not chalky paint, and I do know people who do this sort of work in chalk paint and then seal it at the end. But I think particularly when you come to seal it, I would worry about colours moving. So I prefer a paint that seals itself. That doesn't have to be one of these sort of fancy furniture paints like Fusion or you know, that sort of thing. It can be an eggshell, you know, or something like that. You know, it's got that sort of sealed itself. The kind of paint that you know you could wipe it clean. Basically, so an emulsion, technically you can use it for designs and then top coat it. You just be really careful again, because if you think about wiping your own wall at home, unless you've got vinyl silk, you can often end up with the paint on your cloth. And what you don't want it to do is to be top coating something to bond it so it's wipeable, which is the same problem with emulsion as chalk paint really, and then dragging colours over one another because they're not sealed. So something like something like that, like an eggshell or a mineral paint, is generally self-sealing, and it allows each bit to be separate, which is, you know, and then if you're using it for something that's not high traffic, you could just leave it at the end if you wanted to. You'd be quite happy to. Yeah, that was your next question, actually. Do you seal at the end? And really, that's down to personal choice. You would seal for more protection, or for a more decorative finish. You know, if you've got matte paints and you want it to look shiny, for example. So it's a personal choice thing. I do, as a professional, think that it's necessary. I don't want somebody to have to deal with. One of the other things about using oils, for example, is your customers are going to have to re-oil that piece because oils oxidize. So, you know, that's why I think am I going a bit through, but I don't think I am. I think I want them to feel confident that piece of furniture is going to stay looking the same and they can just wipe it, you know. So it depends what you're going to do with it and where it's going to be. If it's going to sit in the corner with a lamp on it and no one's going to touch it, then, and it's yours, you don't need to go crazy. But if you're going to sell it, I think you need to look to protect it as much as possible. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. I can't believe it was the summer. Feels like it doesn't feel like that long ago. I love when people say game changer. I was sort of like, Yeah, it is good fun, and we've actually extended it a little bit more to give people more time to do the different designs, because this time I'm actually going to cover stenciling. I'm actually going to cover the decoupage and the gilding, and make it a full suite of whatever you need to get your designs done, to to upcycle that piece of furniture. So but yes, like I said, it's that last one, I feel a bit like a bit emotional about it, but it's you can only keep doing it so long. So the demos are recorded. They're going to be recording the next week. No, this week. Shoot, I'm going to record this week. Because I want to break them into little bite-sized pieces, so that you can dive in back into one if you need it, rather than having to listen to me do a whole hour and a half, which is how I did it. Jennifer had to do it. So it's much easier to reference them, because this stuff is there just available, indefinitely for you to use as your sort of library. But that's the thing, so I'll still roll them out once a week, like I did on the course with Jennifer, and we'll do like a weekly live where I'll introduce them and have Q&A around it. We have them in sort of separate stages, and then sort of another weekly Q&A session between, just to catch up with everybody, and then the group, of course, after that. But yeah, it's oh god, I forgot I was going to be recording those this week. Fun and games. Yes, good. It's a good way of describing that, though, Paul. It's brilliant Osmo oil for being resilient. Brilliant, being resilient. You can see the water literally sitting on top of it, which is good. But because it is an oil, well, it's a sort of oil wax product. It does need keeping up with, and that's the sort of thing about it. It's meant to move with the wood. That's why it's for floors, not for furniture. So if somebody smacks it, you can dent it a bit more than you could with a top coat. A really hard top coat is going to be more resilient to that. But it's horses for courses. The only thing I would say is don't wax stuff. You wax stuff and then you want to paint it again, you've got to take all the wax off, which is really annoying. If you guys are painting something right now, you're planning to paint something that's already got a finish on it, you don't have to strip it. You only have to strip something if you want bare naked wood, or to revisit the lovely grain that's hiding under an old finish. You don't need to go that far, which is good. So yeah, don't be worried about that. Exactly that, Gaynor. I'll have a look where I got it from if you want. I could probably even send it to you. I've got a big bag full of stencils. I still think that they're great things to use. But obviously I've got my signature, so I'm going to stick to doing that. Marvelous. Right, has anybody else got any questions? So leading up to Friday, hopefully I'll be seeing more and more designs. I'm going to share them on my stories Instagram, so if you wouldn't mind, if you could just pop back to your post. I think I've got about 6 so far, and just put your @Instagram handle in it if you want me to tag you, because I don't like putting stuff up when it belongs to somebody and not tagging them in. So I'd really like to be able to do that if I can. And if there isn't a tag there, Alice, and I know who you are, I'll assume that you don't want me to tag you in. Yeah, so if you could put them in there before 1 o'clock on Friday, and then I'll come back on Friday night, probably with bags down to hero, because I've got lives nearly every night this week. But let's just have. Oh, I'm not at the bottom of the questions. I've just jumped up, so I'll just double check. No, we're good. I think we're good. Yeah, so hopefully come and join me on Friday. I'm going to be on my page because I want to show off what you've all been doing, and obviously get some more people on the course, because I want to sail a nice full ship with me. And yeah, obviously what you've been up to can inspire other people. So thanks for being on the course with me. It's been fab. And I definitely want to do something like this again. So I have to think about what to do with that. But yeah, I've had lots of people inquiring since we set off about doing it. So whether I make the replays available to them as well later on to buy or something, or just do it as a mini course or something. But it's been very rewarding to see what you've all got out of it, and I'm really pleased that you've enjoyed it. Oh yes, Hayley's got a one-to-one. When are we going to book that in? We're going to book that in after the course, or in the middle of the course, or what are we going to do? So it's exciting. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a special rate for the one-to-ones as well. So if people do want to add, you're getting a special 15% offer, but sorry, 15-minute offer. But I'm going to be offering a rate probably later in the week, I think, if you want to add that on and feel like they'll be more comfortable to have that session. Yeah, so very exciting. Okie dokie, I think that's it for questions. I will post this up on the replay page for you for the remainder of the week. For anybody who didn't manage to make it tonight or didn't see the start, it's been challenging but great fun. I slightly read that as I've been challenging but great fun, which is probably true. Thanks, Tom. I'm looking forward to. You should come on. That'd be great fun. I'm looking forward to seeing which design you pick, because you've got so many designs to choose from and they're all good. So it will be great. There is a lot sort of technically in sort of getting it sort of, to look, spot on. So I'd love to help some of you get there with your designs. It'll be so exciting just to be there from start to finish. You're going to have a go at making your own stencil. Brilliant. That's a good idea. Yeah, I've actually cut stencils out before. If you've got a Cricut or whatever as well, that's another good way to do it. Wait till you see the inside. Well, come on. Is it as jazzy as my jumper? Don't worry, Bernadette. It's absolutely fine. You've got this week. If you can get anything into me, I can obviously include you. But if not, obviously you can finish off, just as and when. Oh, thank you, Susan. You're very welcome. Thank you for being part of it all. I'm just relieved that it went well, because it could have been like, what the hell is she talking about? Let me see. Who's that who said they're more creative than they thought they were? I've just squeezed the page in and I've lost your name. Nicola. Excellent. Good. You are creative. And you're creative if you think you're creative. If you can, you can't. If you think you can, you think you can't. You're right. Yeah. Marvelous. Great. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. The most important thing, the reason I do this stuff and put myself into embarrassing technical situations, and I'm quite introverted, so this stuff is I do this because I'm driven to help you all and do stuff with you. So it's a buzz when it's you sold to Photoshop. I do want to do that masterclass, so nag me, because I've been talking about that since last year. That was something I wanted to do, and then the challenge, and then it's like, yeah. Oh, thank you, Bernadette. That means a lot. There's a lot of winging it, but my heart's in the right place. I'm here to help. Oh, thanks, Donna. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the course. It's really exciting. All right. I'm actually going to read all the comments and sit here and feel. Oh, that's good. Well, I'll pop this up just as soon as it's ready, if you feel like rewatching this as well with all the tips and etc. Oh, thanks, Mel. I usually just go bye and just cut everybody off while you're still telling me nice things, but I'll just sit here for a bit longer. Poor dogs will be very glad that I've stopped doing constant lives every night, because they're being quite neglected. But it's been worth it. So I'm glad you've all enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing some more designs, and hopefully I'll see you Friday for a little, I've called it the finale. I may even have a drink in my hand for that, and just to show off all of our efforts. Marvelous. All right, I'm going to end now. So take care, everybody. I'll see you around in the group then. All right. Bye. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye.